everyone, and welcome to the RGDS podcast. I'm your host, Gordon King, also known as Kingy, and joining me in this adventure is the one and only Paul Driscoll, and also he is known as Drisky or the Drisk, whatever you fancy. How you doing, mate?
Very well, very well. Good to be doing another recording.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I mean, this obviously we promised on the last episode when we did the Arcade Club, you know, whatever you want to call that last episode, the whole catch up of the weekend and that, which we had great fun. And we explained that we were gifted this wonderful hacked Game & Watch, modern Game & Watch system, you know, the ones that came out in recent times, where it had Zelda, Mario, and the listeners, the wonderful friends on the Discord channel, hacked this and gifted us this, just, you know, because we don't even do coffee, whatever you want to call it. You know, we're never ones for asking for contributions, Patreons, or anything else. And I think very generously they just felt, we want to give you something. And it was humbling, wasn't it, Paul? It was very humbling.
It was, yeah. It was really, we were really touched, and it's an awesome device. And what was great, and why it's so good to be doing this episode, is it was a curated list that was done with a lot of care and love, but by somebody else, and therefore, you know, it's games that obviously the ones that we've chosen, you know, I've chosen 6 and you've chosen 6, and I think actually I chose another one as a bonus. It's really, you know, yes, we know the games, but it made us play them again. You know, a lot of these I haven't played for years, and obviously there was ones that Kingy had flagged and I've never played, and likewise I think with Kingy there was ones that you'd never played that I've suggested. Yeah. So I think our listeners are really going to like it, even if you you know, you don't care about it was a lovely gift that we got and that aspect of things. It's a really good list of games that we've utilised on this curated list that we've chosen. I think people are going to have a lot of fun playing through these games with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously on top of that as well, I've got a little interview that we'll do a little segue maybe halfway through the episode with Almac, who did all the hacking on it, and he just explained, just in case anyone else is interested in doing it to their device, then you may be interested in a little, you know, it's about 15 minutes, something like that. So we'll waver across to that at some point when we see fit, to say the least. But it was very interesting speaking to him about that and see how he managed to hack it all, put the games on, so forth. And there'll be links in the show notes as well if you're interested in doing such a thing to your device. No links to the ROMs, that's your problem, but certainly links to how to mod the little handheld console. All the instructions are there, so awesome. So anyway, before we go on to Game Watch Hack, the ultimate gift, what have you been up to? Anything good retro-wise yourself?
Yeah, I've got a few things actually.
No
as
shit,
always.
Sherlock.
Yeah, well, one of the things, there's a couple of games that I wanted to flag, partly because this is one of the years when we've decided not to do a Halloween special. So I thought I'd give some spooky recommends to those perhaps disappointed we're not doing a Halloween special. So the first thing is, have you seen the Retro Realms Halloween and Evil Dead double pack?
Absolutely, they look amazing.
Yeah, they're really good. I'll be honest, they're overpriced.
Yes.
They're like, well, essentially it's like 40 quid for the two, which I think is far too expensive. But it's basically, for those who don't know, it's done by Way Forward. They're the ones that do all the Shantae and all of those sort of things, isn't it? I think they're Way Forward, and they've done like a 2D pixel art. It's basically an action platformer, but with the Halloween and Evil Dead skin, and it's really solid. It's really well done. It's got the one of the big twists of it is that you can go to different realms. So you can go to like the horror realm and back to normal to solve like puzzles, etc.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Great Guyana Sister, you know, the new one, Twisted Dreams one, that did the same mechanic. But yeah, visually really, really good, really, really solid, great music. I do like it, but yeah, I mean, on reflection, it isn't worth the asking price. I'd probably say to our listeners to hold off when it hits a sale and pick it up then.
Yeah.
Because they're very similar. I mean, they're all in the same engine. You can actually swap the characters, so you can basically become, you can be Ash in the Halloween game or Michael Myers in the Ash game.
What's the guy from Wayne's World doing in that game?
But yeah, no, I love seeing these sort of things, and the way that the Retro Realms are sort of set up. There's like a 3D menu that has the arcade machines, and there's some tantalizingly covered arcade machines that maybe down the line will, they'll do future ones, like Chucky or Freddy would be a good one, or Friday the 13th.
Killer clowns from outer space and critters, mate. Come on.
Well, I see that died to death, didn't it? It didn't do very well. There is a modern Killer Clowns game, isn't there?
There is actually, yeah, there is.
But I don't think I've heard good things about it. But that side, so I think it's overpriced. Probably wait for a sale. What I do recommend, I've been playing it this weekend, is Killing Time Resurrected. So for our listeners, you may or may not know, Killing Time was like a 3DO pretty much launch title. It was very early in the 3DO life cycle. Did get a PC release, which was a completely different beast. But Night Dive Studios has done their Magica game, where they've really done a loving remaster. So it's like a bit like Seventh Guest. Although it's a first-person shooter, there's lots of clips where you see ghosts tell the story. You sort of see what was happening, because it's all about this. I don't know, this in the 20s there was this group of people, like a cult or whatever. They were trying to get eternal life, blah blah blah. But basically, when you get there, there's like killer geese, there's there's zombies, there's huntsmen. But it was. I mean, even back in the day, it was quite ahead of its time in that it's quite Metroidvania as a first-person shooter. It's not really levels. You can go anywhere in the island at any time and make your way through. But it's a really loving remake of it. And if you love your old school shooters, then I heartily recommend. And it's certainly at the time of buying, it wasn't too bad. It was 20 quid, 20% off 20 quid. So it was like 16 quid.
That's decent.
So
yeah.
I thought it was quite reasonable, because there's a lot of love and care, and there's extra. They've added extra bits to the game that wasn't in the originals. They were, they've gone back to the original design documents and the wish lists that they never finished and stuff. So they're the two horror games. I've got another thing to mention, but I want perhaps go to you first. What sort of things have you been up to, retro wise?
Yeah. So what have I been up to? Absolutely bugger all retro-wise, apart from these games for this episode. I've been off annual leave, as I probably said before in the previous podcast. I've DIY'd for a fortnight. That's it. I've got up and I've had the odd day off doing something, yeah. But in general, it's been picking up tools. And if you ever live in an old house, and any of our listeners that do, the minute you lift a carpet, strip wallpaper, you just become aware of so many problems. And this is a Victorian house, so if things are over 100 years old, then there's going to be problems. So I've had to rip floorboards up, I've had to fix electrics, leaky plumbing. So to be honest, my time has been consumed with doing grown-up stuff, and that's unacceptable. So I'm so glad to actually just be discussing games with yourself. So I won't bore people with the details of what I've been doing, because that's just boring as crap. But I'm sore. At time of recording, this is Sunday night, and I'm going back to work tomorrow, and I'm just going to be back miserable and grumpy, and I feel like I've not had a break. But what can you do? It's what happens when you don't go away.
Looks great what you've achieved. So well done with that. So.
Oh, I'm sore. I am genuinely sore. But that's what, as well, when you're in your 50s and doing DIY, you're not as flexible as you once were.
Oh, no, I know the feeling. Well, nothing like what you've been doing, but we've replaced like the sofa and like had to, and that sort of transpired in clearing out the whole section of the lounge and cleaning behind the TV and
oh no, you don't go there. That's where the cats go and do a shit.
Yeah. I'm absolutely knackered as well. So it's like the missus just suddenly bamboozle me and then goes off to a party. Oh,
not bad for some. Not bad for some.
No, but going back to retro, the one thing I did want to say is, and it's partly because of this wonderful gift with the Game & Watch that got me really enjoying playing on handheld again. And I was in those, you have those weak moments when you're just like a bit bored and you're looking through, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to buy it. And I bought another Ambernick, Kingy.
Why did you need to?
Well,
because I do.
Well, no. So the reason why I wanted it is I love the Ambernicks. The RG 35XX is the one that I had, but my favourite console of all time was the Game Boy Advance SP. Remember the clamshell one?
Oh yeah, I've still got one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've still got one of them. I love them because the screen's protected. You could just bung it in your pocket, and it's really quite small form factor. So when Ambernick came out with the RG 35XX SP, my God, they gotta come up with better naming standards. Call it the Ambernick Flip or something like that.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah. But and it's slightly better spec as well, so it will run things a little bit better than my other one.
Okay.
And it's not too bad. I mean, to be honest, if you bought it from AliExpress, it's like only 50 quid, but then you got postage and things. I actually paid 99 quid because I went through Amazon and I got the extra SD card because I'm lazy and it's just it's all there to go. Okay. And then I can just swap the games. But I'm 99 quid with postage, next day delivery. I was for that. It was mostly getting it next day that I wanted. But it's brilliant. As you're watching the video version, you'll perhaps be seeing in the background. I did a little video of some of the things, but I mean, it runs PSP perfectly. It runs all the arcade games, and the little touches like the Game Boy Advance SP is in the correct ratio out of the box. Now I know you can configure it, but they put like the bar of saying Game Boy, like it says on the actual original device. It says like the Game Boy Advance underneath.
Yeah.
It does the same, but in doing so, making sure that the screen ratio is exactly as it should be, so it's in the
I'd never had any bother that on my Ambernick. There's just an option to keep it true. But in saying that, then you're saying PSP is perfect, but it's not, because you've got the wrong ratio for the PSP then, because that's not 16:9, but it's more widescreen, and you've only bought a thing that is 4:3 if you want. So I would be pissed off the other way. I know the Game Boy is your thing. You know what I mean. The Game Boy Advance was amazing. You can't win everything. Obviously, you're I'm assuming you're more predominant to play it for these kind of things rather than the PSP.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's more. The Game Boy Advances and things like that. I mean, the screen. When I say in the correct ratio, it is still in the correct screen. What I mean is it puts temporarily like just a part of the graphics, a graphical bar,
an overlay. Yeah,
an overlay to make it the correct ratio. So it obviously stretches down. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, it'll make more sense if people either watch the little video that I did or watch the video version of the YouTube. You'll see it in action.
Yeah, awesome, awesome.
I'm been really thrilled with it. And as I have been, like, with this device that we've been given, I mean, I genuinely have been playing absolutely loads.
I've had a ball with these because it just really fits in your pocket. Even when I've been doing the actual DIYing, I'm having a 5-minute breather. Okay, there it is in my pocket, next to the measuring tape and the pencil, right? Because I don't have big ears, I can't stick a an HB pencil behind my lug. It just falls off, so I have to put it in my pocket. So it was always there, and cup of tea, 5-minute break, play one of these games, and I was having a ball. I mean, the list is brilliant. There's
really
not one
solid list. Yeah,
there's nothing here that I would go. I mean, you've got your favourites, obviously. We all have favourites, but there was nothing that I didn't want to go back to. This is the point. It was like, oh, I really like this, especially some of the ones you introduced me to.
yeah.
I was like, well, this is great. This is fantastic. I'm loving this. This is, whereas it's been all my life. This game, there's many moments like that, but.
And I was the same with the ones that I didn't know with yours. So yeah, it was great, and it was great even the ones I did know. That I'd perhaps just going back and playing it properly on such a great device with a screen. I mean, again, if people watch the video version, they'll see, because I sort of hooked up like to actually video the actual device as well as doing some TV recordings as well of these games.
See, the pains and stakes that Drisky goes for our listeners and /viewers and YouTube channel, because that is a lot of extra work, and mate, that is all on you. I mean, we'll try to capture footage as much as possible, but you predominantly, when it comes to the YouTube channel, it's your baby. You're the one doing all the editing and all the recording, so much respect to the extra effort.
I do like seeing these games as well. So, we compared to our audio listeners, for all the right reasons. I get that we don't get the same levels of views, but that's not what it's about. It's just nice to capture these games in any shape, way, or form, and I think it elevates and it gives a good alternative for those, that perhaps aren't walking their dog when they listen to the podcast or travelling. It's another way of enjoying the show, really. But should we go on to the games themselves?
I think we should.
To go through, yeah.
So our very first one is your choice, isn't it? And it is Magical Puzzle Popolis, or Popils, as I always knew it, depending on which version you played. Popils, very popular as Popils. I played this on, it was my nephew. My brother had bought my nephew a Game Gear for his Christmas, and he used to stay often over when I was still living with my mum and dad, and I got lots of shots of the Game Gear, and I was very, very impressed with the fidelity and the quality of games on the Sega Game Gear. Incredible. But anyway, would you like to give a little description?
Yeah.
Obviously, it came out in 1991, released by Tengen, but what a game it is, isn't it? But
it's an amazing game. So this is a puzzle game, and it's hence the name. But basically, the idea is that you play the boy, and you've got to rescue the girl. That's essentially it. But how do you do it? Well, basically, you can punch the blocks around you, but when anything on that vertical line will fall down as you punch. So what that means is, this is where the puzzle element comes in, is you have to time when you punch a block that's destructible, to then bring, perhaps the princess is walking over that square, so that will bring her down and eventually reach towards you. And it gets really involved as time goes on. You get enemies and enemies coming at you, and you have to sort of think about how you do with the ladders. Really good puzzle game, and really cute graphics. And of course, one of the things you've got to shout out with this is a game designed by Fukio Mitsuji himself. He of Bubble Bubble, Rainbow Islands, Savalian, Volified. He did all these fantastic games. And he didn't do many on consoles, so this is really quite special to see a design game by him on the Game Gear. It's a real. It's one of the most special games on the Game Gear.
Yes, absolutely.
And it passed a lot of people by, because if you didn't play the Game Gear, you wouldn't have necessarily discovered this game. So, I mean, what's your thoughts with this one?
Yeah, I mean, this was my go-to on it. I was blown away. It's got the signature of Bubble Bubble and Rainbow Islands. It has that feel, the music, the aesthetics, the unique gameplay is absolutely fantastic. All on a single screen as well, isn't it? Which just makes it. And you think how can they cram all of that on that very small screen on the Game Gear? Well, they bloody well did. And it's so taxing to have that kind of a puzzle platformer in that way, where there's ladders, there's levels, there's spikes to jag your bum on, and you can really ruin it quite rapidly if you don't think about what you're doing. But no level is the same. It doesn't feel repetitive, and there's lots of levels. But it's been crafted with love. It's been crafted with intelligence. Delivering an arcade game, because I would have loved this in the arcades. Imagine if you went down to your local and this was there. You would have pumped 10 pence after 10 pence into the machine. But therefore, to give that kind of arcade quality game to it was an emerging market, the handhelds. Obviously, the Nintendo had done wonders with the Game Boy, very popular, and many other companies have tried and failed, WonderSwan, whatnot else, to give a tap into that market. And okay, the Game Gear was short-lived, but for the games it offered, this was the kind of quality we're talking about. And I can just play this time and time again. I mean, I tell everyone, the minute they mention the Game Gear, you've got to play Popils. Every time, every single time. The best game on the system? Yes, it is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's one that I know of and knew of, but it's one I haven't played for ages, because it's just because it's on the. I found that and it's completely wrong, but I tend to not ever play the Game Gear, because I think, oh well, it's just the Master System, but you might as well play the Master System if you're going to play like 8-bit, and it's completely wrong, because there's so many games that were unique like this one, or perhaps even better on the Game Gear. I mean, Star Wars on the Game Gear is a great example. So I mean, it's a really, really good one to open the show, and perfect for handheld, isn't it? It really is an enjoyable playthrough.
Oh,
very tough. Very tough puzzler though. It really fries your brain as you're trying to work through.
Yeah, no, but I loved it. I mean, because you really didn't get it anywhere else, it remained bespoke to the Game Gear. Therefore, it can be lost in the annals of time, can't it? That it was a game that deserved to be in. Maybe it is in a collection, but not to my knowledge. You know what I mean? I've only ever seen it in that system, and that's it.
I don't think it's ever come out elsewhere, which is such a shame, really. Such a shame. Because I think a re-release of this would do really well, on the modern machines. Right. So, any more you want to say, or should we go on to the next one?
No, as long as people play this game. I mean, well, what I will say is how great did it look on the little Game and Watch thing. I mean, that screen is fabulous, isn't it? And it took me back. Just the bright and vivid colours coming from the screen. I was like, this is great. I'm just
And good sound as well coming off from it.
very good. That's very sharp sound coming from that little device. It's fantastic. Yeah, yeah. So our next game then, this is my choice, and this came out originally in 1985 by the ASCII Corp on the FM7 computer. Anyone that loves these quirky Japanese, computers, and all, then it was ported onto the MSX, but eventually made its way in the 86 onto the SG-1000, which is the emulator of choice on this little Game & Watch system. What game I'm on about? It is The Castle. Now, I am a big fan of this. Obviously, I first played it on MSX because I always go down rabbit holes with that wonderful, lesser spoken about 8-bit computer. Absolutely love it to bits. This is a fantastic port of it onto the Sega original console. Obviously, it was their first foray into consoles before the Master System. Not often spoken about, is it, Paul?
No, as I say, it was. This was actually new to me. I never played it, and I very quickly fell in love with it. It's so cute.
Oh, brilliant! So it's a very simple game, isn't it? It's a treasure hunting castle platforming adventure where you play a little guy. It looks like D'Artagnan or something from the Three Musketeers, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's wearing the hat, isn't he, with the feather?
The feather in the hat, and it's a case of. It's a flick screen game where there's lots of hazards in the castles, wandering knights and spikes and conveyor belts and whatnot else, elevators, just anything you expect in a sort of arcade castle adventure. But there's many locked doors where you need to collect the different coloured keys to get through the doors. So it's about, I'm not saying it's key conservation because you won't run out of keys, but it's about getting the right key for the right route that you want to take. But it's just a marvellous, well-designed platform game, which each screen is absolutely fun to play. Now, the main character it's got a very floaty jump. Takes a little bit of getting the hang of, doesn't it, Paul? But if you keep your finger on the button, he jumps higher and longer than just a brief press off the button. But it's just marvellous to play. I really can't get enough of this game. I think it's brilliant. What do you think of it?
It's awesome. I mean, it's you instantly fall in love with the character. He's just so well defined, and he's sort of squat character design, which I always quite like in character design.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's simple enough. You go around, get your keys. I mean, I say simple enough. The concept is simple enough. It still can be a good challenge, but it's just great. I mean, visually it looks absolutely stunning. I mean, you could say you can feel it's kind of on the edge of what the SG-1000 could cope with. Sometimes it's part of the design, but it does feel a little sort of janky at times. But then other times you're like, wow, it really, really runs well. You got moving conveyor belts, just so many neat ideas, and it's a really gorgeously drawn out castle. I would have been over the moon if this came out on the Spectrum or C64 or something. I would have been absolutely over the moon.
It would have been absolutely possible to play that. I mean, we've got games like Montezuma's Revenge and things like that. It's not that it's original by any means, is it?
No,
but it's not about that. It's the best in the genre, if you want to call it that. It's up there with the best, in my opinion. I just love the exploration of the castle, because eventually it does get a bit more multi-directional. Do I go down the way? Do I go right? You might then not have enough keys if you go right. So you go, damn, I should have went down the way first. And it gets more harder. You pick up the map, and there's a little sort of Metroidvania style map. It shows you all the the regions you've been in. It's just addictive, compelling, and downright fun to play.
Yeah, no, and as you say, great enemies, and it's very easy to waste your keys. As you say, it's definitely one's hindsight is the easiest sight to have. But I love the little like the Viking type characters with the big beard. I don't know what they're. They got spiky helmets, so that's why I call them. But yeah, it does take a little while getting used to the jump, isn't it? Because you can like literally do really long jumps.
Yeah, and you do need them. The game, the whole game layout is designed around short jumps and really long jumps, so you need to know when to use each.
Yeah, no, I really love this. I love the enemies. There's you got that like monster jelly and things, and that look like a harmless jelly, but then will turn. Just so many nice enemies with this, and I was really. Yeah, thank you for bringing this to my attention, because I clearly the MSX is not one that I've really sat down and played, or the SG 1000, and they clearly need to play a lot of them a lot more.
Yeah, especially hidden gems like that. It's just wonderful to fire them up and went, you know what, this is very refreshing, in a familiar kind of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd mention to some of our listeners, the Castle Quest, also in Japan it's known as Castle Excellence. That is basically kind of like a sequel, isn't it? It's the same ethos. So if you like this and you're looking for more, then that would be a good one to follow up with, is Castle Quest.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's that many games. It is very, I suppose, for people in the UK shores, the castle oozes BBC vibes, BBC Micro vibes, and obviously Castle Quest is a huge one on the BBC Micro, one of the most popular games for it, to be honest. Can't get enough of it. I love games like that. I can't get enough. And I was jealous of my friends that had. The very few friends actually had well off enough parents to own or buy them a BBC Micro. It was great for games like this. The colours, the vibrancy of them, the very unique games like that. They marched to the beat of their own drums, and I loved it. No, they didn't necessarily want to be Jet Set Willy. They were doing their own thing.
Yeah, and this. Yeah, certainly. If you love those flick screens like Kingy and me do, you'll absolutely adore this. It's really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, brilliant shout out, Kingy.
Cool, thank you very much. Well, it's on to your choice. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I've gone for a Game Boy game, and it's one that perhaps a lot of people do know, but Mania. This came out very late on the Game Boy. It came out in 1996, and it's actually a Nintendo published game done by the Nintendo EAD division, and it's just a really charming sort of again puzzle platformer, really, isn't it? It's overhead, and the idea is that you play the mole, and you can either sort of like pull cabbages or boulders and throw them at the enemy to kill them, but you can also, in certain parts, if it's just ordinary grass, you can dig down to then dig underground. So that's where it becomes a bit of a puzzle, because perhaps you can't get above ground, you can't get past because there's like rocks and a wall, but you can dig underground and then make your way under that wall, in effect, to get further, and it becomes more of a thoughtful thing where you're trying to perhaps be careful where you dig the holes, because obviously that might affect where you attack the enemies, because the ball will fall in the hole and then it will immediately transport to where it began, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, you know. So that very often you're having to like leave the area to go back to the same area because it resets everything. So that's a good way. I'm a huge fan of this one. Every level gives you more and more unique things, and just really charming. Really charming. I mean, what do you think of this one?
This I have never heard of before, and therefore,
Really?
never heard of, even as a word. You know, sometimes you hear of it and never play it. This just didn't exist for me, so this was fun firing something. Oh, this is something new, brilliant. You know me, and I was blown away. I love the relationship between the subterranean level and the above ground level to try and solve your navigation. That, as you said, soft ground, hard rock, right, you can get through that bit. And each, you know, where you're underground, overground, wambling free, sorry, they come with their own hazards. So it's brilliant. You've got to solve it. And sometimes blindly memorise what's above and what's below, right? If I go 3 blocks to the right, 3 squares to the right, I can go down again and then go 3 squares down and back up again, and, you know, just to solve the level. And then it gets hard even on the overground, you know, the big black balls, you've got to pull backwards and forwards. You can really
because you have to use the balls to smash the exit usually, isn't it?
That's right.
How the hell do I get it there? Yeah.
That's right. And if you've dug wrong holes in the ground to go underground, the ball falls down too early and it respawns back at its origin point. And it's like, I've buggered up, so you have to leave the screen and come back again for things to pardon me, reset. So I think it's fun. The visuals are superb on this, Paul. I love the mole character is more cuter than Monty Mole. He's fantastic, to be honest. Absolutely superb. Yeah. His little sort of shades on, but when he gets killed, his eyeballs all go poppy and sticking out.
I love his victory dance when you actually
mm-hmm.
Destroy the exit. So he'll do a little dance. Yeah.
This to me shows time and time again how if you go past the casual nature of the Game Boy, what your parents thought the Game Boy was about, like Tetris, and, you know, maybe a Mario game and something like that, that there is such involving and fun games to play that it was only the imagination that was the limit for the system. A small screen, how do we make fun games? They made fun games 9 times out of 10, to be honest, for this system. And this is one of these where you don't get this on any other system. You don't, even a game really remotely like it. It's unique, it's different, it's its own thing. Why aren't we playing more games like this? Because they're better than most of the things that exist nowadays.
Yeah, well, this is why we love retro, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
There's so many wonderful games out there, and I mean, this did pass a lot of people by because it was so late on the Game Boy. I mean, you did get it in the store on the 3DS. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you look at it, you probably wouldn't play. One thing I would say is that if you're lucky enough to have the or an emulator to do the super, you know, the Super Game Boy where you plugged it into the SNES.
Mm-hmm.
That can make it look, it does a lot of visual sort of treats and does like a border with Mania and stuff. So it's because it's sort of a late one. They did quite cool things, but awesome. This is a great puzzler. It really is, and I'm really chuffed. I didn't know, this would have been new to you, so that's awesome.
And maybe it's the trouble that as much as I play the Game Boy these days, it wasn't something beyond the casual approach. I mean, I got a Game Boy, it must have been 91. I must have bought one at a car boot sale. Maybe, no, it must have been a bit later. maybe near 95, and I got a collection of things for it then. But it was Wario, Mario, Tetris,
The usual ones.
the usual ones, right? I didn't delve deep because I wasn't. The games weren't appearing. That was the point, right? The boat had sailed for it in many ways, and I've got at this point. It must have been 95 because we're talking. There's the PlayStation out and things like that. So it was, limited for me is probably the best way to describe it. And this is always when because you're an advocate for the Game Boy, a huge advocate for it.
Oh, I
and
love
it's
it. Yeah,
every time you tell me games. So it's like you told me to play Bill and Ted's because it's basically Chucky Egg. Damn right it is. If it wasn't for you, I would never have known this. And you see Bill and Ted, and you would go, well, that's going to be a crass movie.
It's terrible
tie-in.
on every other machine.
Yeah. So, I'm reliant on people like yourself. Tell me what to play on a system like this. I'll be open and honest about the Game Boy. Whereas every other successive one, well, since the Game Boy Advance, I bought every other one then, so my knowledge base, anything under it, is limited. There's some, but it's limited to what I was exposed to.
Yeah. No, really, and to our listeners, if you're after a really good, it's a puzzle game.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of the best, I think. Really, really good, and still holds up fantastically well today.
Okay, so moving on, we are on to back to my choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're going to go back to the Game Gear, Paul, if that's all right. If you will indulge me on this, because we have been enjoying a bit of the Game Gear of recent times, and this is Arena Maze of Death, released in 1996 by Eden Entertainment. Now, I love this game. It is one of these kind of isometric dystopian shooters that, there's a number of them in different systems, but what the Game Gear achieved on this was just visually impressive and gave something very different yet again that showed the ability and the creativity of its programmers that believed in this little handheld console and gave us wonderful games. So you play this fella who is battling against a brainwashing TV broadcasting corporation that sends signals out as brainwashing the nation in the near and distant future. And you're running around predominantly kind of warehouse-like levels and industrial sections just to make your way to the broadcasting satellite to destroy it. But it's absolutely...
So basically they live the game without the license.
And the shades, yeah.
Yeah.
And the shades, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. What a movie they live as. I love that film, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But to cram on a small screen, one, ambitious isometric graphics to start off with. So you'll see outside sections of the warehouse, inside sections. So there's switches to get, there's people to shoot, ammo is limited, then you have a knife to stab them. There's vehicles like tanks that you can't destroy, you just got to avoid unless you get better weapons. So there's a lot of avoiding as well. But I always thought that coming from an isometric gaming background from the 8-bit systems where I was so used to using a keyboard that made sense what was up, what was down, what was left, and you do get 3D-ness that people get confused. Some people's minds prefer up and down being different. But this just works really well. The D-pad works well with it. The fluidity of the game is very good. But it's the excitement of not knowing when you go through each door, because it scrolls to a certain degree. Each area is a reasonable sized map, but then you get through exit doors and it moves to the next section until you get to the end of the level. So there's always that excitement of what's going to be through the door. Now think of, the isometric, like I suppose Syndicate. It always kind of remembers me of that to a certain degree. I just loved it. I played it a lot, and in fact, this is great music, great visuals, and great gameplay. What a bloody marvelous game! I mean, you played this one before.
Yeah. No, this was totally new to me, and I fell in love with it. I mean, it's kind of what I've always wanted Last Ninja to be, is that more fluid, sort of isometric sort of game. Got great weapons. As you say, you play Guy Freelander in the distant future of 2026. And,
Shit, we've only got a few years now, mate.
and yeah, as I say, it's done by Eden Software. They're it's a UK house, isn't it? And Stuart Middleton did. He started out. Who's like the lead programmer? He started out doing games on the Spectrum, like Tank Attack and stuff like that. And and he did sort of like the not so good ports of Simpson Bart versus World. That they were terrible games, weren't they? But he also did actually Starsky and Hutch, which I have a guilty pleasure with. I enjoy that with the light gun and the racing. But no, I think this is just brilliant. It's got amazing visuals. I mean, yeah, you're going around and you're flicking essentially switches to get other areas. I mean, but sometimes that's all you want. You just want nothing too complex. It's got real nice range of machine gun and weapons and grenades, and it gets quite powerful. Yeah, I just had a blast playing my way through it. Really, I just as I say, great music and yes, I mean you could argue, well, it's all warehouses, so basically
there's a bit more variety, but it's predominantly there's caverns, sort of underground sort of cave areas as well, if you're good enough to get that far. But,
I perhaps didn't get that far. They all look quite warehousey, but no, I really liked it. I mean, the enemies constantly spawning in, because like with They Live, they sort of like teleport in.
That's right, yeah.
And that could be annoying, is because often you're trying to work out where to go, and you're constantly like destroying you. Like, I've already destroyed you. Why are you coming back? Yeah, but no, I really really enjoyed this, and as I say, I've always got a soft spot for isometric games, and this handles it better than most, doesn't it? Really,
it does. The animation of the main character, the way he's running stride is absolutely fluid and fantastic. His blue jeans and his black futuristic boots. Yeah, we're going to be wearing big knee-high boots in the future as well, Paul. It's worrying in 2 years' time. So you've got games like Escape from the Planet Robot Monsters, right? And there's elements that remembers me of that, to a degree. But I suppose it's what it comes down to. It's an isometric arena shooter at its core, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's and this is why it's more of a shooty version of something like Last Ninja, right? Whereas that tended to be, because you are sort of solving puzzles to progress. No, I just really enjoyed it. It's a pity there was never ever like a sequel on the Game Boy Advance. I would love to have seen where they would have taken this, because I think it. Yeah, as I say, it was charmful. I just played this a lot more than I should have, given the number of games we had to cover, because I couldn't, because it was new and exciting, and I just couldn't put it down. Really, it was really really good.
It's one to go back to though, for sure, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, this is, and then, again, it highlighted to me that I've really let the Game Gear down in my head, because I was such a Game Boy guy back in the day. And then I got it in my head, well, all the games are just Master System ports.
Isn't that funny though? Because normally I'm singing Nintendo from the rafters, and your Sega, and there seems to be a bit of a role reversal here.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it's and it just the game. Well, I've told the story like with the Game Boy, like it was a bit of a spoiled mate that sold his Game Boy with loads of games, so I just. I had it ready to go. Whether the Game Gear, I mean, you couldn't afford the batteries even if you.
You had to play it in the power adapter at all times. It was not a portable
Yeah.
device. That's the thing. If you plugged it into the family car fag lighter, it run on 12 volts, the car would stop halfway down the M1 as well. So
Taking that much energy, yeah. But no, they're really, really good, and yeah, definitely another one that I would urge our listeners to give a go with. So everyone's been an absolute classic, isn't it? It really has.
Oh, I've been enjoying it. I've had fun, absolute fun playing the choice. I think personally, going through these, it's been, when we do a mixed bag, there's always one we're not as keen on. This time round, I can't say it. I've just loved every one and had an absolute blast, especially on that small screen. It's been good.
Yeah, same as me. And you're right. Playing it it's just such a beautiful little machine. As you say, you can genuinely put it in your pocket and away you go. And the battery lasts pretty well as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
On to your choice again, my good sir. Would you like to tell the listeners what this one is?
Yeah, so I've gone for Dragonfire on the ColecoVision, and this came out on the ColecoVision in 1984, but of course a lot of people know the Atari 2600 port, which came out in 1982, so this was like a couple of years later. And part of the reason that I chose it was because when we did our meetup in Arcade Club, one of the listeners, and I'm trying to remember who it was now, but he was saying he'd been playing Dragonfire, and at the time you've had beers and things, and I couldn't place it. I was like, no, I don't know it. And he goes, you must know it. And that sort of got me when I came home. It's like, of course, this is Dragonfire. Of course, I know Dragonfire. It's a magic game, and of course, anything that was a magic, I always try to play. I'll pass it to you though, Kingy. Do you want to describe it to our listeners?
Absolutely. Now, this is a very simple 2-screen game. So whether you played it on Atari, whether you played it on the Commodore or Spectrum, or obviously on this very version of the ColecoVision, it's just a fun arcade game. So you are a brave knight daring to enter the realm of the dragon, who has a hoard of treasure that you want to steal. So the first level is running across the drawbridge over the moat, and the dragon is firing his fireballs out of the room you want to get in, basically. So you've got to dodge, duck and jump. The fireballs come in your direction. So when you successfully do that, you then get into the second screen where all the treasure is scattered about in the treasure room. The dragon's at the bottom, and he fires his fireballs towards you again. So it's just a case of avoiding them, collect everything, and then the game repeats. There's 50 levels in the game, and they progressively get harder and more varied. So say the drawbridge section, the fireballs get more frantic. There's elves on the battle tops firing arrows down at you, or the drawbridge draws back and forth, things like that. In the second dungeon, there's orcs running about, trying to get you. Don't collide with them when you are trying to collect the treasures, stuff like that. So each dragon's a different colour when you go inside the the treasure room, just to give a bit of variety as well. It's just a fun game to play, and I've remembered this all my days. It's existed all my gaming days from the Atari 2600. Then I bought it on my Spectrum as well. Absolutely love. I even am halfway through. I've got it's one of my old work in progresses. I just axed it. I have a remake of this sitting in existence, incomplete as well, just because I loved it so much. I wanted to make a game of it, a modern looking game. So it's fun. Good frantic arcade game. Gets difficult. I'm shit at it, always have been, but doesn't stop me enjoying it. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I mean, the same thing really. It's just it's one that had sort of, I do know, but I hadn't really played it for years. But it's just, as you say, it's a really just addictive, well designed game, isn't it? Really, and it just is, you described it brilliantly with how you sort of like play it, and just it gets tougher and tougher as all arcade games do, and each section is unique enough, isn't it? Where you're going against the dragons, beautiful visuals. I mean, what do you think of the Coleco port of it? Because I was quite
the
impressed
definitive version, personally.
Yeah,
this is the one to play. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was.
There's lots of
really,
subtleties.
Really
so if you're on the first screen and you look at the moat, there's just little ripples in the water. There's the candles are burning or the torches are burning on their sconces, and the variety of colour of the dragons. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the original Atari 2600 game. That's the one I originally played and fell in love with. But you realised that the ColecoVision was a bigger player with better hardware. They were able to make these games far more appealing to the eye than the blockiness nature of the Atari. But obviously, you'll get the purists saying the original and the best. That's fair enough. But to me, I would always go back and play the Coleco one because it is fantastic.
Well, again, and this is why I loved it with the device, because I came to realise on the ColecoVision games that we chose for the show, because both of us chose a ColecoVision game. It's another system that I need to dive in more and play, because it's such a beautiful.
I want to do these ones.
Machine,
what I'd love to do? Coleco and Television, all these. I want to cover them because to me, that is my most. Because I was so excited as a kid when all these things came out. And I think there was one person that had a Coleco, but yet again, it's another. For growing up in a council estate, I knew a lot of rich kids, didn't I? But
you did, more than me.
That's the thing about comprehensive education. You don't get grammar schools in Scotland, right? There's one type of school, and unless you can afford private schools, you're all together. So that way,
I see. All the rich kids went into like private schools around our way. So.
Yeah, there's as always said, it was more like the working class rich, the oil rig workers. That was buying these systems for the kids as an apology for the parental absence of fatherhood, in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just loved seeing these systems. They excited me. I didn't think any one was better than another. You can have the whole playground, banter about it, but I was more like, wow, they've got that. I want to see it. I've got a Spectrum. I don't need to go and see Chucky Egg on the Spectrum at a mate's house. I want to see Chucky Egg on the Amstrad at a mate's house or whatever. You know what I mean?
See something that's different.
See something different, yeah.
That's one thing that I'm quite excited for. I mentioned about the wider world of Atari DLC in the last episode. Well, as I say, the next one that they've not announced what it's going to be, but they've given the title, which is like I forget what it was now, but it's like the competitors of Atari. And of course, one of the things I didn't mention is that Atari, the modern Atari, now own Intellivision. So So I'm convinced that it's going to be a DLC pack of the Intellivision games.
Oh, I'm sold. I am bloody sold. That's
So,
exciting as shit, man.
Yeah, so I think that's coming out in November. So I'm quite looking forward to when that gets announced.
Right,
it's only speculation, but I mean they own. It's fact they own Intellivision, so and given the name, it would make sense.
Oh, that's fun.
Games.
That's fun.
Yeah.
If that's the case, there's definitely an episode coming then, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, no, I love this. This is really good, and good. Thanks to the listener that name. I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't remember.
Well, it was funny because when we were comparing our lists, right, I was like, well, straight away I was on the ColecoVision, and I was like, well, my first choice would be Dragonfire. You send me the list, and there's Dragonfire. I was like, you bastard. That was my choice. It was the same with Popils.
And I bet you would have chosen Popils. Yeah, exactly.
It was exactly. I said, right, I'll choose something else then. But never mind.
Well, I'm glad because it made you choose ones that were new to me. So
exactly,
brilliant.
Exactly. Right, before we go on to the next game, let's go into a little bit of intermission here, where I interviewed Aleste McMillan, or Almac as he's known on the Discord channel, about his hacking and modification in cohorts with Turnbull Graham on this little Game & Watch device, and let's hear what he has to say. Right, so joining me for a little interview is the one and only Almac from Discord, Alistair, as his mother's Sunday name is given to him. It's a pleasure to have you on board for part of the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me, Kenny.
Anytime. Now, obviously, the episode's about the Game & Watch device, and you and Turnbull, thank you again, by the way, for that lovely gift. But obviously, you were the technical genius behind it. Turnbull was more the procurer, wasn't he? That's the best way to describe it, and the curator of the games. A joint effort.
Yeah, exactly. I think he created a list. We had a bit of a chat about had I seen what people could do with the Game & Watch. That's kind of where things started. We had a little bit of a sort of private chat in Discord, and he was asking me a bunch of questions about stuff, and I hadn't actually seen many of the videos that are out there just now on YouTube and various places about how to hack it or what was possible, but it definitely piqued my interest when he started to talk about it.
Yeah, it's like red cape or red rag to a bull, that, isn't it? It's like, I can get to tinker.
Very interesting. So it's like, I get to take my Game & Watch apart and have a look inside. This sounds good fun.
Yeah, so in a nutshell then, obviously you had to replace the chip on board on it. So is that the memory chip? That's correct, yeah?
Yeah, that's like the internal flash.
Wow. So how did you go about this then? Where did you procure them from and such, and then the process of doing it?
So Turnbull, he'd done a bit of the research on this and what to do, and gave me a couple of links which basically sparked my interest. And I found a few more places. There's quite an interesting group on Discord, a lot of chat around what people have done and different hacks that they've done for the Game & Watch. So he actually ended up getting some of the DuPont cables. So he got some of those. I think he got from the Pi store. He actually acquired, I think via AliExpress, the upgraded internal flash. So he bought a number of those chips. So I think he ended up buying 6 in total. So we thought we'd have a few spares. So it was to do his Game & Watch, my own, and then the 2 that we got as well as a gift for you and the Drisk.
A lot of people are wary of buying from AliExpress. I've bought a few things. I mean, if you're patient and the things come in, sometimes they're quick, aren't they? And sometimes you have to wait a couple of weeks, but they always seem to arrive.
Yeah, I think they did they arrived pretty quickly for Turnbull. So once he got them, he posted those things up to me, and then basically left me to it.
Trusted him with your address. Wow. Living dangerously, mate.
No other way. So
Cool.
yeah, so I mean, I got those and started to have a bit of a tinker. There's quite a few interesting articles online about it, and I would say I sort of had to sort of piece together a few, and I think I've given you a copy of 2 of the YouTube ones that I ended up using.
You'll be on the show notes.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, one of the guys actually, he built a custom virtual machine, which is what I ended up actually. You can download that from the link on his from his YouTube link.
Okay.
So he had all the scripts sort of collated together, which let you do what needs to be done. But yeah, before that, you need to open it up, obviously, first of all, and then
Easy enough to open?
Yeah, it was just a tiny little sort of tri-wing adapter for the screws. They're pretty easy, just 4 of those to take out, and then
See, that would have
prise
been
it open.
with it being a Zelda Game & Watch. There was a lost opportunity for them to patent another type of tamper-proof screw, and it should have been the
Not what we need.
the Triforce one rather than the Tri one that you had.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, and then just basically peel that apart. That was fine. Just above the main sort of CPU, I think, and near the battery case. And I think I've sent a few pictures as well. So hopefully,
Yeah, they'll be on. If
share them
anybody's
too.
watching the video version, then you'll be seeing it now.
Cool. So yeah, there's a few little points. Yeah, near the battery case, there's like a ground. There's a SWCLK, SWDIO. So from the video, we basically are connecting up and soldering to 3 of those cables. So they connect directly to the board, and then the other end are likely to be DuPont cables. So that basically connects into a little ST-Link USB device. So again, I'll give you the link for that as well. But so that has to plug into 3 very specific pins on the USB device, and then when you plug that into your PC, that allows, if you allow the pass-through on your virtual machine, which I downloaded, that allows the virtual machine to actually talk to the Game & Watch device. So that was kind of where you start.
So obviously then once it's connected and communicating, it's just basically batch files or script files to run. Yeah, it pretty much does most of the work.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a really good job, actually. The VM, it's got everything sort of kind of already in there, excluding ROMs or anything like that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you basically, there's a couple of scripts, a sanity check, so you run that, just make sure that it can see the device. Then you back up the internal flash, just to make sure if you do make a mess of something, you can then recover it back to, a working device and you haven't bricked it.
Yeah.
After that, then you back up the internal flash. Then there's another script to unlock the device, and then you do a test restore as well. So basically, once you've followed those 5 scripts through, you end up with a device which is basically back to exactly how it was, but it's in an unlocked state.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, you can basically inject the RetroGo emulator and ROMs and take it from there, really. So that's where Turnbull's curated list came in.
So before that then, obviously, you had to replace that chip. How easy was that for desoldering and then reattaching?
It got easier. I am glad I had...
Here's a question then. Whose one did you do first, Drisky's
I
or
did
mine?
mine first. I was very good. I thought if I'm going to break something, I'll break my own before. So mine was definitely the guinea pig. So yeah, I'd seen a few videos which were talking about basically because it's such a small chip, you could desolder it pretty easily with just a normal soldering iron, normal tip. But quite a few other ones that I've seen as well, they were for the hot air.
Yeah.
To do that. So yeah, I mean, so once it's unlocked, then you basically, the internal chip's 4 meg, I think, in capacity. So yeah, it doesn't fit very much. It basically fits your 3 Zelda games on it. Okay. And that's your lot. So the next bit is, taking that off. So I used a hot air gun. That came off pretty quickly. The other chip that gets replaced, it's not only bigger in capacity, but it's actually bigger in size as well. So you need to scratch the traces away a tiny little bit just to give yourself a bit of room for it to connect in. So the other chips, I think 64 meg, and And yeah, so you scratch a few of the traces back, just sort of re-tinned those again with some solder, tinned up the back of the chip, and then hot air, just dropped that back in place and wait for it to melt in place, basically.
Cool down and fix itself to
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
exactly.
awesome. So, yeah, that's probably the most. Depends. Some people prefer the hardware side of things, and that's what they're more adept at, and they'd rather leave the software tinkering to someone else, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But you clearly have managed both.
Yeah, both definitely.
Relatively easily, after a bit patient. You have to be patient with your first one. You don't rush into these
Oh
things,
yeah,
do you?
definitely. I think I ran the hot air of mine a little bit close to some of the bits of the plastic. There's a lot of plastic inside there as well, so used the heat-proof tape as well. So just to keep everything
shield it away from the
shield it from that heat. So
fab.
once that's in place, it's basically then a case of there's one of the other scripts that the guy has, which will basically put the firmware back in place that you'd already backed up, but actually, I guess, extend it to use the full capacity of that chip. So that was the next stage to do. And then after that's done, then basically, there's a few other scripts in there as well. Once you start to populate your ROMs folders, because I think the device itself does actually quite a few different emulators. So there's a 7800, there's an Amstrad, ColecoVision, Game Boy, Game Gear, Game & Watch. There's the Mega Drive, there's the MSX, NES, PC Engine, SG-1000, Master System as well. So there's quite a few in there. So at that point, it was basically get the ROMs from the curated list, and then also try and get the artwork. Now that's what
I was about to ask about the artwork there. Yeah, how did you go about? Did you have to reduce it yourself to a certain?
So I had to try and find a few myself. So basically, there's a script in there called Make Covers. It will actually look at all the ROMs that you've put in place, and if it's already got a cover as part of that image, then it will put it in place, which is great. It's a very small little .png file, basically, for the artwork. But yeah, it definitely had. So once I did the Make Cover script, I could see there was quite a few things it tells you as it's running, what's missing. So I had to do quite a bit of a manual finding. Found another cool utility online. There's a lot of stuff out there, of course. Scraper, Skraper. Again, you can point that at your ROMs folders that you have in your machine, and it will go and grab artwork from many sources, I believe, out there on the net. So, but yeah, some of those then had to be resized down to like 160 by 120 pixels. For it to fit in the Game & Watch. And again, once you've done that, there you've got all the ROMs, you've got all your artwork, you basically make a clean build. So basically you're issuing that command for making a clean build, and then after that you basically say go and package everything up. So it runs another script, and it basically takes all of your ROMs and your artwork, does a lot of compression, I'd imagine for the ROM files themselves for the artwork, and you have to then try and make sure it's going to fit, and you'll soon find out if you've put too many ROMs in there that it's beyond your 64 meg, and you've got to recurate the curated list. So we did a bit of fun with that.
Oh, it's an amazing list. We can't deny. Obviously, we're covering about a dozen games in this particular episode. You've heard a few of them before this segment. Absolutely brilliant and great the way he's went about doing. A, knowing us and knowing the type of genres that we enjoy, but B, by just having a chat in general, especially Turnbull, and just asking questions. What would you say is the best game on this? Funny. And then it all comes together in the end. That's why your random questions.
Must have seemed very random.
Yeah, it was. It's like, I'm kind of used to that with him anyway. He likes to do that just to generate conversation. But there was a method to his madness in that one. So, brilliant. And obviously then the trick is putting it all back together and getting it back in the box that looked like it hadn't been touched by human hands. You're a man that clearly sends things back to Amazon and Argos at a high frequency because opening, practically without cellophane being on the outside of the box, right? This thing, even the It was packaged back inside, the little USB lead, the foam cover that goes over the thing inside.
Yeah, tried to make it look like it was
it'd been
untouched.
done by a professional in the factory. There you go. So yeah, you've been sussed that you must be doing that with your Amazon returns.
I'm saying nothing.
PlayStation 5 neatly wrapped, a box neatly wrapped, a brick inside it and returned. But no, impressive, mate. I mean, thank you again for taking all that time and effort, because it's not just about, you can easily have just bought that as a gift, right? And it would have been amazing. But it's when people spend time and effort on you, that's the humbling part, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, people have taken time out of their busy lives to make this work. That's not 5 minutes work, this. So again, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Glad you and the Drisk like them.
Oh, we love them.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. As you can, when you eventually listen to this episode yourself, you go right and play along with some of the games. That we mentioned
definitely.
on it,
Well, it's definitely there was a good list that Turnbull had.
Oh.
Some that I'd never heard of as well. So it's good to see them.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So thanks again, and thanks for joining me in this little section. And we'll catch you
you're
another
welcome.
time. Okay. Thank you.
Cheers.
So yeah, I mean, skills beyond what I have the patience for, mate. I'd just lose it probably at somebody's bits.
You're talking about somebody who struggles finding a screwdriver in my house. So yeah, the thought of like doing what he had to do.
What he didn't say was, just to keep it more concise, was on the way up in the train when we initially spoke about it, that long train journey, stuck in Bolton for 3 hours. Fuck you, Bolton. as the he tried it. There was the original instructions were doing the hack on a Raspberry Pi, but he only had a Pi 4, right? And it ran like stink, and it was like 25 million hours later, it was still like 2% in off the hack, and he thought he had brick. He was doing it on his own. Handheld first, right? So then he looked at other instructions. You can do it from a PC, and it took like 3 seconds. So anyway, so that part isn't in the story there. But I thought, well, we should add it because it's quite humorous as well. So
Good. Brilliant.
Good.
Well, we appreciate it, all the effort.
Yeah, we do. You do, and thanks for joining us, Al. Thank you very much. Right, so it's back to my choice again, isn't it? So we're back on the ColecoVision. We seem to follow each other. We've stuck to a very limited subset of systems, but it's because a good game's a good game.
The ColecoVision was so many new. Yeah. Yeah. This was another one that was new to me, so I'll look forward to it.
Yeah. So originally released in 1983 on the Apple II computer, and it kind of oozes an Apple II kind of game. I need to go down, as much as I'm not an Apple fan, the Apple II era of gaming, like Load Runner and stuff like that, I really need to delve into that deeply and find all these hidden gems, and I hope you would join me in such an adventure at some point, Paul.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Sounds good to me. But anyway, they liked this so much that in 1984 they released this for the ColecoVision, and it is the Heist. Now, it's a very simple ladders and levels, I suppose, but you are a cat burglar who's broken into a museum and needs to steal all the paintings, basically. But at night time, it's a high security system, isn't it, Paul? So you need to avoid them all whilst collecting all the paintings with a very limited countdown timer of 2 minutes.
It's cool because every time you get a picture, it resets the 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But that becomes surprisingly difficult as you get on, because
a lot of it is working out
how to get to them. Yeah,
exactly. So split into 3 tiers on the screen. It's still a flick screen game, right? 3 levels on it. There's escalators, laser beams that shoot down, robot drones. I think there's robot hoovers that they predicted the future early on. I mean, my work's full of them now. The cleaners put them out, by the way, at say 3:30 on a Friday and I work until 4:30. And honestly, I'm in fixing a computer or something and little fuckers are chewing your shoelaces or whatever that you give them. I'll get kicked out, fuck off, the road. But there's elevators that you need to also activate in the game as well. But it's all about stealing the paintings. But it's just a very simple and fun arcade adventure, isn't it? It's really good fun.
I really like this. This was new to me as well, and I just fell in love with it. I love the little like Alf Garnet or Almac hat. The little granddad hat that the cat burglar has.
Oh, it's a Blisky. That's a Blisky that wears them at Arcade
Oh, it's a
Club.
Blisky. Yeah,
It's a Blisky that wears that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's got great music. It's just really cool, isn't it? And it gets surprisingly difficult. Mm-hmm. Before you're thinking, well, this is great, I'm having a good fun, but where's the challenge? Because there's the pictures, resets the clock, and then you very quickly realise that actually this is getting really difficult as you progress, because you're really struggling to find the next painting.
Yeah.
And that 2 minutes doesn't sound very long all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was only, I only managed to get to level 2. Does it change much with the other levels, or?
Oh, it's just a swap around, really. That's all it is.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. I mean, it's got like moving conveyor belts. It's quite a modern little museum, isn't it? That he's breaking into. But yeah, charmful is how I would describe it. And I just couldn't. This was another one I couldn't stop playing. It was. I'm like you. I love discovering new games, and it just opened my eyes that there's so many systems that I need to give more time to. Yeah, really.
I mean, it does get. Although you might get the floor changes colour on the next levels or something like that. It's just a swap around, as I said. But my God, it gets tougher and tougher. I mean, really tougher in terms of the amount of platforming you have to do. Lots of jumps, lots of things to avoid. I think level 1 it's good. It's got a proper learning curve. The first level. I mean, these games, unlike modern day where you get tutorials, obligatory tutorial level has to explain everything to you that you just grow bored and I'm not playing this. You just learn by mistake on these games, don't you? You're like, okay, I done that wrong. But at the end of level 1, you've seen everything you need to see to survive the game. But thereafter, it's going to get harder and tougher. And you go, okay, you may know how to leap across this and avoid that, but this now requires a lot more precise timing, awareness of what's going on, and whatnot else. And that's good. That's what you want in a game like this. And I think when I went down a rabbit hole on the ColecoVision years ago when emulation first became a thing, and this is one of the ones I still fire up to this day. Yeah, simply because it gives me this to me is very representative of what video gaming is like in my mind. If that makes sense. If I was to write games and want games, younger me, and how nostalgia works for me, it's this kind of thing. And it really appeals to me on so many levels. I absolutely adore it. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's a great choice for this one. Really, really, really cool.
Excellent. So I'm glad you enjoyed that one, and it's good to offer a new and fresh, different game for someone to play.
moving to a different system, and I'm really blown away that this little handheld could handle PC Engine.
Yeah.
I was really amazed. But the game is Magical Chase on the PC Engine, and this came out in 1991 on TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine, and it's basically it's Cotton. It's the first sort of Cotton style game. You play Ripple, who's a witch on a broomstick, and it's a horizontal shoot 'em up. It's very it has a lot of similarities with games like Gradius and things like that, and therefore Parodius. But it's just beautiful. The colours are popping, really colourful. It's got quite an advanced sort of like power-up system, and you have these stars that act as your sort of like side shooters that you can control, and therefore control your shot. But it's all with these gorgeous little sort of cute 'em up graphics of all these characters and everything, and it just makes you beam ear to ear as you play it. I mean, what did you think of this? Was this new to you, or?
Yeah, this particular one was new to me. I mean, the minute I fired up, like I alluded to, I was like, wow, this is Cotton. And it is incredible. It just fires you into the action straight away with visual overload. So many different sprites of so many excellently designed enemies to shoot. It's just superb. The scrolling is fantastic. The movement of the witch on the broomstick is brilliant. It's a fantastic shooter. It doesn't take itself seriously, and that's what makes it all the better. I'm not always a big fan of cute 'em ups, but the cotton games always seem to work for me. I suppose it's because I do prefer horizontal shooters over vertical. That's always been my preference. Every other shoot 'em up aficionado says otherwise, tells me I'm wrong, but that's fair enough. I can't believe the visual overload that this game has. I really can't. And the power-ups, you collect all the rubies, the gems, as you kill the creatures. Then there's a floating shop on a balloon. You go into it and you can, go to rapid fires, freeway fires, whatnot else, other power-ups. They're really critical for progression in the game. Brilliant boss fights as well.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I should say. I mean, although we're saying it's Cotton, like it's not officially. It's done by a different team.
Yeah.
But it's essentially it's Cotton.
Yeah.
But it's you're just playing a different witch. But it's really really cute, isn't it? And and the team the Quest Corporation that went on that did this. They did games like Ogre Battle and Final Fantasy Tactics and things like that. So which are awesome if you've never played. If you love your turn-based sort of tactical strategy games, they're but being really accessible, they're great ones to play as well, aren't they? But no, I'm glad that this was a new discovery for you, because I think I actually love the visual style of it. It's very clear, clean graphics. It's a good Halloween game, actually. It's one you could play with the kids.
Yeah.
And I actually I find Cotton gets a little too frantic at times. This has, it's still got a lot of enemies, but you never feel particularly lost. Unlike with Cotton, sometimes there's just too much going on.
It's not screen overload going on. There's always a path of avoidance from the missiles or the enemies themselves. It plays brilliantly. I was blown away by how varied the levels are and the visual stimulus that it gives you when you're playing it. It's incredible. I mean, it shows you. I mean, we've done the PC Engine episode just a couple back there, and I can go back time and time again to show that as a top contender of, I mean, every, like in the UK shows especially, or in America, is that we all speak about Nintendo, we all speak about Sega, and obviously there was that other contender there with a home console that, you know, if you had ready access to that, more ready access to that back at the same time, it would make me wonder what I would have chosen as my weapon of choice.
Yeah, no, I honestly think that the PC Engine, certainly for the games that I like, is probably my favourite for consoles, 8-bit console. You know, in terms of the library, it's just so solid because I do love my shoot 'em ups, and it's amazing for that. But as we proved, you know, it has some amazing platform games and things, and just a lot of the genres, just really unique and impressive. But that's the thing with the PC Engine, there is such a solid library, and it is interesting. Just as an aside, but there is that High Score. I don't know if you ever watched the anime High Score, but it's sort of like reminiscing of kids in the 90s playing video games, but obviously from a Japanese perspective. And you know, seeing their excitement playing the PC Engine, and it made me quite envious to see that history, that, you know, that it was such a important system in Japan, whereas it really didn't hit the same zeitgeist over here, unfortunately.
It's a shame. It's an absolute shame, because for every new game that someone mentions to me on this that I haven't been aware of, and you go into it, it's like, this was an absolute solid system with an unseemingly wealth of quality games that you just wish I had the exposure to. That's the point. I wanted them in the past. I would have been singing this console from the rafters to everyone. You screw these other companies, play this one. This is the one you want to play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I'm glad this was new and maybe new to quite a lot of our listeners. So we'll see what they think as well. You know, we always urge our listeners to give these games a go.
Cool.
Right, so we go to your choice then.
Back to me now. Well, we're back to the Game Boy. You'll like this because it's the Game Boy, and it is Balloon Kid. That's about a woman with big balloons. No, it's not really. It's
well, it is a woman, a girl. Yeah.
You're playing a girl who you must basically traverse the levels collecting other balloons, whilst either floating on the balloons you currently have, or releasing them, and it becomes a platformer. You know, you can play the level how you choose. It's up to you, which made it very unique in that way. But I remember I first played this. We used to run trips from the school I worked in over the weekend, taking kids down to Alton Towers. That was an exhausting thing because kids didn't sleep. You got the bus down from here on Friday night all the way down to Alton Towers, and then spent the day there and travelled, and on midnight again all the way back up the way again, you know what I mean? So it was an exhausting thing. So anyway, when you were doing these journeys, the kids in the bus would bring all these devices on them to entertain them on a journey, and the minute I saw these, that was it. It was a great way to break the ice with some of the young kids and that. Right, show me your games. What's your favourite? What do you own? And have a chat with them about it and have a challenge with them. And Balloon Kid blew me away. I was like, this was the game of the journey for me. Playing it, absolutely loved it. It's very challenging. You know, it's very floaty if you want to be on the balloons. You know, it scrolls from predominantly right to left and that. You know, it is Mario-esque to a certain degree. But I think it was different enough. You know, if you lose your balloons, you can pump more to start floating again. It's just you can decide how you do this level and how you want to collect these balloons, avoiding all the creatures like the crows or the fire bugs and whatnot else. You know, there's there's just your usual variety of different terrains, isn't it? But I think on the black and white Game Boy screen, I don't know, because of they couldn't convey levels in colour. They had to think quite cleverly about how to give an aesthetical appeal in black and white to suggest the terrain they're in. So you could be in Iceland, but Antarctica, right? And just small mountains in the background with icicles and stuff like that to suggest the cold levels, or obviously the cityscapes with the skyscrapers. It works really
it's great
well.
Graphics,
yeah, the graphics are amazing. It's very varied and just great fun. There's Flappy Bird elements, of course there is, but that was before these kind of games were a thing. So you could keep tapping the fire button to float higher, or let gravity bring you down again to avoid, or as I said, drop the balloons, run about. There's bits on the game you have to not have balloons to progress further, but generally it's just great fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love this. I mean, of course, the first game was Bloom Fight. This sort of a sequel. So Bloom Fight came out on the NES, and basically that was a Joust rip-off, wasn't it? But very cute. You got your balloons and little characters and your knock. And this has that as an aside game.
Yeah.
You still can do the Joust element, for 2-player. And that's great fun. But I really love how they took that idea and sort of ran with it, with this sort of like very, very unique platformer. And obviously you got the force scrolling, so you're constantly like moving along, and as you say, it's all about dodging the enemies and trying to go into as many balloons as possible to keep the floating going. And great music, great graphics, and again, just really, really charmful, but particularly very unique as well, isn't it? There hasn't been many platformers like this, and I'm with you actually. I mean, it did see a Game Boy Color version, and also on the NES as well, and such like. But I've always been drawn to the Game Boy original, really.
Yeah.
The Game Boy original, because it's what it was designed for, to be black and white, and I just think it actually there's something about it that looks nicer. Somehow it looks tackier with all the colours to me.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm probably I know a lot of people that love the Game Boy Color version over this, and that's fine. I'm not taking it away for anyone, but I guess this was the one that I was sort of drawn to. I played back in the day, and I've played it many times since, because of course the Game Boy Color version you didn't see till the year 2000, so it was a decade later. The NES version came out in 1992, but of course my knowledge of the NES, particularly at that time, was pretty poor. I didn't really know it at all. So I was really chuffed that you chose this one, because it's another one where I do know it, and I loved it, but it's been literally decades since I last played this. So it's awesome coming back, and it's, as you say, it's another one that's just perfect for this beautiful Game & Watch modded handheld, isn't it? It just plays so well on the screen.
It really does.
Yeah, so awesome choice.
take it away.
Yeah, so for my next choice was GG Aleste, or Aleste. I never know how to pronounce it.
I've always said Aleste.
Yeah, Aleste. This came out on the Game Gear. It was the first one that was released on the Game Gear. I mean, obviously, I think it's number 5 in the series. Yeah, so on the Game Gear, it's a sort of different kettle of fish to Power Strike 2, which is, is doing its own thing here. But it's a, again, it just really shows how Compile are masters of the shoot 'em up genre, and the technical wizardry going on the humble Game Gear is really, really stunning. Great music, amazing power ups. I love the risk and reward of trying to collect those power ups, and it genuinely is interesting, all the different weaponry that you pick up, even if it's one that's a bit rubbish. It's all quite interesting as you sort of play through and discover them. And it gets even better as the game progresses. I mean, I think it starts off looking a little bit, I mean, it's still beautiful, but it's probably in my mind, one of the worst levels in terms of visually. But if you continue to sort of play through, I think it gets, it's got nice variety. When you're on the more sort of like space station levels and flying through space and stuff. Great vertical shoot 'em up. Compile does it as only Compile do, and loads and loads of power ups. Yeah, I mean, I really love this one. I mean, what do you think with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I've only ever played the less games on the MSX, so I'm not as familiar with them on any other system. But this was incredible.
You never played Musha?
No.
Oh wow, that's on the Mega Drive. A really, really good Musha.
Okay. I'll check that out. Yeah. To get a shooter of this kind of quality on the Game Gear is fantastic, to say the least. There's so much going on. It's a really good, involving shooter for any fans of the genre. The power system is really good because not only can you choose the power up, right, which is a bit of pain in the arse. It's a bit like, like in Ghosts and Goblins where you try to avoid the torch once you've got the good weapon that you have. I've got the dagger, I don't want the torch, and you try to jump over it and you collect it. Well, it's a bit like that in this game where I think the power-ups are maybe a little bit too big, and they move, the swing across the screen as they come down. It's like, how am I going to avoid it? I don't want that one. But you can also energize the weapon that you have to make it even more powerful on top of that. So that's a nice mechanic in the game. But what I like about this is, even though it's a vertical shooter, the scrolling in some elements all changes. It kind of can, even though it's moving up the way, scrolls to the left. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Or there's different types of, I wouldn't quite say parallax going on, but just different motions to give you the illusion of different speeds and whatnot else. That train level on the canyon later on is one of my favourites. When I got to that, it just looked great, because you're right, the first level does not sell it. I don't know the appeal in that design of that first level. It just doesn't say what Aleste is about on the Game Gear. So definitely persevere, definitely progress, and enjoy it, because it is a fun quality shooter that really has been designed in mind that it's on a small screen, right? When it's not just a simple port and that'll do, they'll just have to make do, it was fine in the arcade, blah blah blah. No, this is designed for the Game Gear, and it plays fantastically on it. Looks great, sounds great, top shooter, and a really good choice by yours, Paul.
Oh no, great, really good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And now, of course, you for those that are looking, there is the Aleste collection that you can buy on the PS4 and and on the Switch. Never on the Xbox, grr, but or the PC, unfortunately. But that does have this game as part of the collection and the ones on the Master System. Because I love. I mean, I'm probably the opposite to you. I never really played the MSX ones, but I did play once it came across to like the Mega Drive with Musha and the Master System games. Unfortunately, the Power Strike games go for an awful lot of money on the Master System. But also Robo Aleste or Aleste. I don't know. I always say. I think historically I say Aleste, but we know how I am for pronouncing things wrong. So, but I grew up calling it Aleste, but I think you're right. It's Aleste. But yeah, no, there's so many great. If you love your vertical shooters, any in the series, I think are absolute classics, really. So it's another one I'd recommend for people to try, and I love the Game Gear ones. They're great, as are the Master System ones, and any on the Sega.
Yeah, it's an enduring series. It's fantastic to play. Can't really pick a favourite, to be honest. I mean, I'm not ever going to be. That's for Garden to say. He's the shoot 'em up expert, isn't he? You know, I mean, I'm more a bit more casual towards them than any other genre, but great to play. Really enjoyed this one.
Great. Glad that we've had a win after win, so that's good. Fantastic. So let's go on to yours. Keep up there.
I love this. We're going to the NES for a little change, so we're not jumping between Game Boys and Coleco Visions and whatnot else. One word would change the meaning of this game, right? So this is Boy and His Blob on the SNES. Imagine if it's got Boy on the Blob. Right, that would be a very different game.
Or Girl on the Blob.
Well, in this day and age, Paul, is So, but the magical and imaginative David Crane, as in Pitfall David Crane, Ghostbusters David Crane, returns on the NES at this point in 1989, which was released in North America at that point, and this is a fantastic cooperative game where you're a young boy who has befriended this aliens, who resembles the new Shmew. You remember the Shmew cartoon?
No.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Paul! Like, I'm doing episodes with someone else in future now because there is no cultural reference for the 70s when it comes to you. Absolutely none.
Absolutely none.
Hanna-Barbera done this cartoon called the new Shmew. I mean, it doesn't roll off your tongue, which was based on a cartoon, a comic strip called The Shmew, okay? And he was this anamorphous white blob that changed shape to whatever he wanted.
Are you sure you weren't just taking lots of copious amounts of drugs? Are you sure this is real?
We shall put a link to the new Shmew on the show notes, my good sir, and you can check it out.
I'll try and find the video.
Came out at the same time as Captain Caveman. You'll recognise a lot of the voice actors. You know, if you watched the Hair Bear Bunch and whatnot else, it's all the same kind of actors that I had at the time. Brilliant cartoon. So, similarly, you have this little creature who you're running along and you have to solve the obstacles in the game, the traps, the puzzles, if you want, in the game, right? So how you do that is you've got pockets full of different kind of jelly beans. Vanilla jelly beans, cola jelly beans, cinnamon jelly beans. Now, it's a road to discovery. what effect they have on the blob. So you toss him in the air, and he eats it and goes yum 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 yum, and he transforms into ladders with a particular type of jelly bean, or a rocket, or a blowtorch, or just crazy things, right? It's like shit. I'm going to have to write all these down. So you'll stand.
That's what I had to do to play this. Yeah.
Stand at the start of the level, feed him every different type of jelly bean just to see what he's going to transform into, right? And there's quite a bit, isn't there, Paul? There's a good.
It's like about 17 or different jelly bean flavors.
Yes, 15 if I remember right. So you got apple, banana, berry, bubblegum, coconut, cola, cream, grape, licorice, mint, pear, punch, root beer, strawberry, and tangerine. That's not from my memory. I wrote that down. I'm not sure. Right? So you can dislodge things. You can move things. You can reach things. You can blow up things. You know, they all have very different things. You can even, it turns it even to a bloody trampoline that you can jump on and reach high heights as well. And that is the basic crux of this game. Loved it on the NES when it first came out, and loved it even more when it came out. There was a modern adaptation of it on the Wii later on, which was just as superb. But back then, I found this was highly original, extremely addictive, trying to figure out what kind of jelly bean you needed to use to make the shmew, I'm going to call him the shmew, to make him bend to your will. You know, where you were his master, right? You were absolutely his master. He was Pavlov's dogs to your jelly beans, and he'd do anything for a jelly bean hit. Imagine what would happen. You know what, you buy the jelly beans nowadays, Paul, right? And you put them all in your mouth in a winner, and they're all different flavours, and you get this sensory overload. What would he have become if you gave them all at one time?
Yeah, I know. I wanted to try to do that. I tried to throw lots of. It's very easy to waste the jelly beans, isn't it? Because sometimes you'll throw it and it misses mouth. And no, I really like with this. I mean, it is once you do need to write down what all the jelly beans do, but once you do that, you know. So the good example right at the beginning. You know, you run down into the subway, whistle. One of the buttons will like whistle to say, "Come on!"
Yeah, that's right.
Come this way, and then it's like, okay, you got I can't even remember which flavour, but say it was cola is the whole, and you throw them the jelly bean, it turns into whole, and that will get you down, and then you know you work out which one is for the ladder. And you know that gets because there's like lots of like gold and things for some reason you're picking up as well. I didn't read the instructions. Shocker, I know, but I had no idea what I was doing. Mostly, it was kind of like it was like a platform version of Lemmings. Really, this is as much as we love that Lemmings platform game. It really should have been this, shouldn't it? With some sort of. Yeah, the different items that you could pick up. Yeah. I think it's really, really clever. And of course, it's wonderful. It's, as you say, you alluded to, it's David Crane, obviously, he of Pitfall, etc. But it's also Gary Kitchen. He did the co-design and worked on it as well. He's the guy who did Keystone Capers, and of course they both did Simpsons Bart versus the Space Mutant. You know, I just love how it's lovely to see that these guys carried on beyond the
pioneering period. Yeah. Absolutely,
and still was right at the cutting edge and beyond.
Well, this was novel. This was different. This just stands out and gives me that kind of flavour of the game that always tickles my fancy. It dares to be different and gives you a puzzle platformer that is unique. Yes, it pisses you off getting the blob to be in the exact position you need him to be to do your bidding. to be honest, if you ask me, like any good pet owner, give it a good fucking hit and you get it there, right? Fucking move, slap, right? You imagine all the dog owners moaning now at the podcast, but no, I mean, it stands out, and it always did stand out of a game that no one really speaks about on the NES for me. And a lot of people go to the RPGs or whatnot, right? Or even the origins of the Mario games. But this one really seldom gets a mention in my books. And I want to really make people aware of what a fantastic mechanic exists in this game. And maybe you won't want to play this one. You might want to go and play the Wii one, which is a bit more refined and very playable. Very playable. If you want to play the Origin game, this is the one to go for, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, it is, I guess, a little clunky in terms of... I mean, it's very clever with what it's doing, but sometimes you know what you need to do, but you just can't achieve it because
you go, well, I need to bounce there, I need a ladder, I need to morph down there, I know that. What frickin' jelly bean is it, and have I consumed them all as well? Have I overused that? Because you'll lose so many just misthrowing them and lose them. I'm not saying the game's without its flaws, because it does have them, but the idea and the principles there, that it's like, to me, this is what gaming was for me. Always pushing the boundaries.
You've got to admire its ambition and how it really sort of like took it on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
I'm glad, because this is another one that I haven't played for decades, so it was nice. Should we go on to my next choice?
Oh, it's your choice, and this is fantastic, by the way. Go and describe this one and explain this to the listeners.
So I've chosen, we've gone back to the Game Gear, which I'm kind of glad, because you're right, we've never really given the Game Gear its due love. So it's kind of nice that we chose quite a few of the Game Gear ones between us. But this one I've always had a soft spot with. I've sort of discovered it after the fact. Only ever played it on emulation, if I'm honest, but I had discovered it in the past. It is Factory Panic, and this came out in 1991. Developers JSH, and of course published by Sega, and it's just a really interesting sort of concept. It's kind of like Pipe Mania, but with a different idea, where there's switches, and you have to direct the traffic of objects to the waiting individuals at the at areas on the track. So, like level 1, for example, you're there's bread, and there's like rotten bread,
moldy bread,
and level 1 is actually with the meat and bones. So the idea is you send the meat to the individuals and try and step off the buttons to send the bones, continuing on the track, so it doesn't go to them, because they obviously won't be happy if they just have bones.
Paul, you're being so polite. This is a geopolitical statement going on in this game here. This is like North Korea versus South Korea going on, right? And they're licking the fence, jealous of westernized, acquired goods, the contraband that would be in their country. Come on, man, right?
Yeah.
So
this is it. You got the soldiers on the early levels, and it's sort of like they're trying to. They'll beat you up if you're trying to get food to the populace. But sometimes it's not just food; it's like game gears.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole concept is quite unique. It's kind of Pipe Mania, but not quite.
Oh, it's better, way better.
Yeah. And you can throw sort of like pepper or whatever it is, I don't know what it is, at the at people as well to that makes it easier, but it is that sort of risk and reward. You're sort of running around being chased because you usually like run out of the weaponry and and trying to run over the button at the right time to let the object get to the individuals.
That's right,
As the levels go on, my word, it gets really tough. Really tough, really complex. The trumpet's the thing that lets you fire, isn't it, and things. But I just love it. It's just a really unique idea, and it's just done with these lovely, charmful graphics, and it's just a really enjoyable arcade game, isn't it? Really, it's one that
brilliant.
You would love if you saw in the arcades. Yeah. I mean, what did you think of this? This new to you, or?
Completely new to me, right? First of all, I see this character that looks like a young Turnbull without his beard. He's got his golden locks, the same smile. It's Turnbull in a game, right? So he's went to South Korea to fight against
North.
No, he's in South feeding the North.
Right? Oh, I see.
You see. So he's much against the oppressed, and I mean, he's got his shorts on like Turnbull. It's everything. It is Turnbull the game. That's what I'm going to call this one. And you should see the guys that are literally licking the fence, right, at the conveyor belts of all this desired gear, proper chicken on the bone, Sega Game Gears, bread, proper bread that isn't fusty and mouldy. And the idea of... It's almost being, rather than Pipe Mania, I suppose it's more like a railway train, what's the word I'm looking for? Controller. Changing the direction of the track on the conveyor belt of the things coming out. So there's always good and there's always bad coming. So you want good to the left, bad to the right, in a very crude explanation way. But that's easier said than done. So you're diverting it to the direction towards the fence lickers, right? And you might just want to pick up yourself and go starve and go yum, 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 and eat it in front of them and walk away. But this is brilliant. This is a absolute fun, enjoyable game that is just cheeky. It's challenging, incredibly challenging. I think he's actually spewing vomit out his mouth rather than from pepper, by the way, because when you press the fire button, he's like, I think it is vomit, right? So I'll vomit on the oppressors of communist, the communist governments of the world. Good on you, Turnbull. Well done, you, because you are in a video game and you are fantastic, my good sir.
Yeah, and I love, as it progresses, as like you get things where you have to like pick up the ladders to make your own tracks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
bridge the gaps.
Tracks, bridge the gaps, and there's just so many things with this, and you're right, it is making a little bit of a political statement, but it's done in such a fun way.
Oh, the more the merrier.
Really,
these kind of things,
really solid. Arcade game, and again, this only came out on the Game Gear. It's one that would have missed loads of people by, because unless you were lucky enough to like own it, or you spent some serious time with the Game Gear, you probably I don't often see this one on lists. So I was really chuffed to see it on the device, because it's like, oh wow, he's got good taste, Turnbull. So yeah, so when I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely one of them. So yeah, so this, you said this was new to you, did you?
Yes.
Oh, good. So I'm glad I'm yet another convert to this classic game.
Oh, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
To me, I would say personally, this is for me game of the episode.
Oh, fantastic! No, well, that's high praise when you consider the other games that we.
Oh, they've all been fantastic, but for me,
Yeah.
because it's new to me, it just blew me away. I mean, this is exactly what I want in a game.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I'll have a think of my ratings with the others. But before we do, should we go on to the final two games?
Yeah, well, we could not cover Game and Watch and not do Game and Watch games, because the guys also filled our socks with pretty much all the Game and Watch games that existed under emulation on this, and for all intents and purposes, playing it on the small device. Yes, some of them are double screen games, I get that, that's fine, but it flips round if you do the double screen games, and it splits the screen in two, so it does work, even more smaller, but the vast majority of Game & Watch games were single screen ones, and Paul and I also chose our go-to Game & Watch games off the list. They're all great. There's something very, addictive
and it does a great way of emulating it, and
wow!
and playing it on a Game & Watch device that says Game & Watch.
Yeah, it takes you back there, doesn't it?
It's just fantastic. Yeah.
So to put in perspective for me, I mean, there were predominantly things I just licked the case catalogue for, because I had a Spectrum. I wasn't going to like a Game & Watch game was what, about £40 back in the day, if I remember right, or something like that. I can't remember the exact price, but if I was going to ask for that for Christmas, that would be, a couple of Spectrum games anyway. You know what I mean? So I knew what I would always choose. But my mate Harry across the road, he was a collector of these things, and he had a fantastic, he must have had about a dozen over the years of them, and I just loved going and playing them. You knew what you were going to play in these games. They were very precise about the gameplay mechanics, very simplistic, but they become very clockwork, very addictive, very compelling to play. They knew what they were doing in these games. They were rhythmic, weren't they? You needed to know what was going on the screen, where your character that you were controlling had to be, and they all had that very similar premise. So for my choice then, I know it's maybe obvious, maybe not, I don't know. I'm going to go for 1982 Donkey Kong Jr. I love this.
Yeah.
Absolutely love this game. So it is in the jungle where Kong is in the cage and you're playing Donkey Kong Jr. and Mario, if you want to call him that, if he was called that at that point, is sitting under the cage. And as young Mr. Kong Jr., you must just climb up, work left, up, so right up, left, up, zigzag all the way up if you want, to get the key for the cage. And you have to avoid all the bear traps that are moving towards you and the birds of the jungle. And it was just great fun. It was just the tick-tock, tick-tock, the metronomic timing of the game was where it was fun. If you get into that rhythmic feel of it, you can rack up a score. I just loved it. I just loved the animations, the looks on the faces. Each place he was in, because of the way the LCD screen worked, they had a different animation for each individual position they were in the screen, weren't they? And that made it more. It gave the character you were controlling complete characterization.
Yeah.
The cheeky faces, determined. There was deterministic faces, the frightful faces, and all the rest in between. It was just brilliant, and just that final overleap to try to reach the key that as you were trying to get to it, it said it all in the brilliant animations, and that's what makes it for me is in the animations of the game. Brilliant, great fun. I take it you played this one yourself.
I've played it before, but it was great going back to it and playing it on the device. I always struggled with getting the key. It took a while for me to get into the zone of that final bit. It was easy enough getting up there and dodging all the bear traps because you can just jump up the vines. But there's something wonderful with the Game and Watch where, as you say, because of the nature of the hardware, that it was sort of like hand drawn but colouring in bits that were hand drawn. It gave you sort of really graphics that were unparalleled at that time, isn't it? Because it's real cartoon come to life, and it still looks phenomenally well. And what's amazing is how well this plays. It really does play. When you consider this was I think this was the 5th Game & Watch game Nintendo did. And of course it had a much wider screen. It was part of the widescreen series with the visually, and therefore it allowed it to do so much more on the screen. When you compare it to like Ball and some of the early ones like Fire and things like that, it's they're all just as good, but it's they really were finding their own, weren't they? With these ones. A great choice, and it was great going back to. It's probably one of my favourite Game and Watch ones. Definitely one when you get into the throes of it, isn't it? And great choice. And you're right, we had to do the Game and Watch. Because these are what the systems were sort of like designed for. Now, technically, that was your final choice, wasn't it? And this was where the show would end. But when you chose a Game and Watch, I thought, I really should have chosen one. So even though it was, I did a cheeky additional.
You done
choice.
6 games. I done 5 in a Game and Watch, if you want. So you've done a 7th game.
So I did a 7th game, but. I had to choose. I've chosen Snoopy Tennis on the Game & Watch, released in 1982, and I've always loved this one. I do actually own this Game & Watch.
Great game.
For those who don't know, you basically played Snoopy, and you go from there's like 3 levels: the ground, upper middle branch and upper branch, and the idea is you have Charlie Brown hit tennis balls at you, and Lucy comes as well and also starts hitting tennis balls at you, and the idea is you have to move up and down and swing your tennis racket at the right time to hit the balls back. Obviously, if they if any balls get through, then it's like game over. And the idea is to last as long as possible and see how many hits. And that's what I think I love with it. Not only I was always a huge Snoopy fan, still am, and of course it has that wonderful hand drawn look and feel to it. But it's a really addictive game. It's one of those that you always know that you just push yourself that little bit more. Can I get more than a new high score of before I die? And it is that pinnacle. Just pick up and play, isn't it? So it's wonderful to have it on this Game & Watch modern device, and because it's a real shame, isn't it? Like the original Game & Watch that you bought with Nintendo before our friends made it wonderful, even more wonderful. They put Ball, didn't they?
Exactly.
And it's like probably the worst. I know it's the first one, and I guess it's the history, but if you're going to choose a Game & Watch game, that's not the one to choose. There's so many more that are so many better.
And I get they'll probably have licensing issues these days of like Snoopy and whatnot. I mean, come on, though.
Nintendo own Donkey Kong Junior, though, don't they?
Yeah, I agreed with that. But I do wish Nintendo would just release a Game and Watch with all the Game and Watches. It would be fun. And make it a dual screen one, obviously, for the few games it did, and something else goes on another screen. It would be fantastic, because as much as they are basic games, they're part of our childhood, these ones. And the concepts behind most of the games are pretty similar, aren't they? You know what you have to do. Well, you played one, where it be Octopus, where it be Donkey Kong, where it be Snoopy. You know what you need to do. The Oil Panic one, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The Disney one. I just love them. There's something completely magical about them that is different from the VFD games of the same era. And I think although the games are very dated, they still hold their own and are hugely nostalgic and very important to, preserve in one way or another.
Yeah, no, I agree, and of course they did the there's a variety on the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and things where they did the Game and Watch collections that you could buy, but they were never the same, was it? Because they sort of obviously touched up the graphics to be still the game in the essence, but not with the true Game and Watch visuals, which is so important, isn't it?
Very important, yeah. Which under the emulation on the device, it almost cons you into thinking you've got the real thing. Which, to be honest, is probably, as much as we've praised all these other games for this episode, I think importantly to have that complete collection of the Game and Watch games on this
on a device
is far more important than
it.
Yeah. Incredible. It's just blew me away. So yeah, again, chaps, genuinely thank you. You've created an episode out of this.
Yeah, and a great episode as well. I mean, it just shows you Turnbull's and has chosen amazing games
Good
on
taste.
the device, and Almac's hard work of doing the hardware, and I as I say, even though I mentioned I bought that, the RG35 XXSP, whatever it's called. I'm not going to stop playing this because it is just so. The form factor so thin and small, you can literally put it in your pocket and forget about it. And,
yes.
And the battery life is really quite good on it. And there's something nice about the curated list that's been so well thought out.
Yeah, because normally we'd put our own, and we'd just go back to our own favourites if we were in control of it, or an all-you-can-eat buffet because you got a big enough SD card, because of the limitations of the memory chip, like Almac was on about. It forced them to put that fixed amount of games on, and I'll tell you, having a shite in work's time playing this thing has never been so good.
You managed to get the site reference in every episode. You get it. Well done, my boy. Yeah, fantastic. No, but yeah, to our listeners, I hope you enjoy them. Please, try these games. We live in this wonderful world where we can, get these games and make the most of it, because companies like Nintendo and quite a few companies now, they're smelling the money of retro games, and they're going to make it more and more.
Is that just not a sign that they're making crap games nowadays?
Well, it's certainly they're certainly coming out with lots of retro stuff, isn't it? With at the moment on the Nintendo, but it is a shame. I mean, I totally get when it's like the Switch emulation. I mean, I won't even do personally. I won't do current systems emulating because that's in a different ballpark. But when it's game preservation, I'm very much because, as it's been proven again and again, that these companies, they don't have the respect for the history.
Yep.
You know, so many of these games would have just, if it wasn't for emulation, would have disappeared away. So it's lovely to see.
Oh, good.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed. It's been a good one, Kingy.
Yeah.
So shall we wrap things up and hope everybody has a nice Halloween?
Yeah, sorry it's not been a Halloween episode, everyone, but you know what? It's been getting harder as the years have been going on for that one.
We've done so many years.
So many, yes, yeah. So have a break from it. Maybe we'll come back next year, but it was good to do this one. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a good delve into games I've never played before, so I'm dead chuffed.
Yeah. And, play that Killing Time. If you're after a Halloween game, that Redux version is awesome that I picked up, that I mentioned at the top.
Excellent.
Right then, boys and girls, well, have a great one and keep it retro.
Bye-bye.
It's the new shoe, the incredible new shoe. He's gonna please you. This incredible new shoe likes you.